And welcome back. We are going to start on the foreground of our watercolor painting. This should be the next day for you. So we're just going to take our brush and go ahead and re-wet those paints. Just going to go through and add some water to all of them. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and start tackling our foreground. So our background is pretty much done. There's a little bit of white areas, and that's okay. You can leave those on there. You can see the salt texturing that turned out really nicely. If you want to brush off some of that salt that you think is loose, you can do that to just kind of make it a little bit nicer. We're going to go ahead and start with the darker green that'll go for this. I want it to be similar to this green, so if you remember from yesterday, we did add some yellow to this grass color. So I'm just going to pet my green paint right here. And again, I'm going to put it in the lid. So the lid is really the mixing area for colors. You don't want to mix into these little containers because it will make them messy and it'll be hard to clean out. So we're just going to put some in the lid, and that'll be our mixing area. You notice that it's a little bit darker. So I do want it to be darker than yesterday. So that means just less water. So now I have all the green that I want. I'm going to go ahead and rinse out my brush. And I'm going to wipe it along the side and grab some yellow, making that kind of color from yesterday. All right, should be a little bit darker. I'm going to take this green and I'm going to apply it. It should be a little bit brighter, a little bit darker than the background. You can see where my scoring marks are showing up. So you can see where I scored it. Yesterday I took that push pin. If you don't have a push pin, you can use a needle. If you have a needle, you could use, what else? You could use a safety pin. So if you have a safety pin, that will work. I'm going on either sides of my little river that I'm going to put right there. So I'm just trying to go around my river. I'm trying not to paint into my tree trunk. There we go. And now I've painted all the grass around there. I'm going to keep adding layers, so I'm not going to be worried about it being perfect right now. I'm going to add more layers after it dries. Now I'm going to go to my tree. I'm going to start with the the leaves of the tree. So I'm going to rehydrate and add some more water into my green, kind of pet that around just to get that mixture, to get more pigment into the water. And then I'm just going to add it over here on the side. So there we go. There's some nice green. I'm going to rinse out my brush again. I want it to kind of be similar to the trees in the background. So I did add some blue yesterday. I'm going to add a little bit of blue into this as well. I think that's a little bit too much blue. I'd like it to be a little bit more green. So I'm going to grab some more green and add it in. There we go. I like that color. Okay. So this color again is a little bit darker than yesterday. We added a lot of water into that middle ground, which is good. We want it to be far away. So I'm just going to paint around my branches a little bit and add my green for my tree. So I talked about yesterday wanting to add some texture into the leaves with rubbing alcohol. So I'm going to make sure I do have my rubbing alcohol close by. Kind of going around my branches just a little bit. If they overlap a little bit, that's okay. I'm not trying to be perfect. The brown will cover up the green pretty well when I go back over for my branches. So I'm just going to go ahead and add this in here, go around my edge here. With trees, you really want it to be uneven and natural looking. Kind of bumpy texture. All right, let's add in our texture for rubbing alcohol. So I have my rubbing alcohol. I have my Q-tip. I'm just going to add a little bit here into the lid. Gonna load up my Q-tip and then just add some dots. can see it is, which is what's causing this texture. Super fun. Look at that. Going along the edge, going back and forth, just kind of dabbing everywhere. You can let them touch if you want. Really cool texture. So there's my leafy kind of texture for my tree. Voila. Last thing that I'm going to add today is going to be my stream color. Then we're going to go back later and add our last layer. So I'm just going to do the stream really quickly. The stream is going to be blue because it reflects the color of the sky like we talked about with that kind of lake here in the middle. So I'm just going to add some water to my blue. I think this blue is a little bit too dark, so I'm going to add some to my lid and make sure it's really watered down. I want it to be a light blue, and the white of watercolor is just the white of the page. So we're just adding in some water here. I'm going back and forth horizontally because water is flat. So to make that look flat, you go side to side horizontal like this. I'm going to leave some gaps for some highlights in there, so I'm not going to fill the whole thing with blue. And then I'm going to be very careful as I create this little stream that goes back into my little lake over back there. I'm going to add a tiny bit more blue into this lake just because I think it's really pale. So just a little bit of sideways lines. Try to keep it super light. So if you do go back over something like this, don't let it get too dark, or it's going to try to come forward and everything dark should be up here in the front. All right. So that's it for today. Go ahead and let this completely dry before you go to the next video. We'll see you then.